What's going on, everyone? Kaneda here, and today we're going to be talking creating fantasy worlds, mace training, and more as we explore the mind of writer and creator of A Guardian, Easton DeVerna. Easton, thank you for joining me.
Hey, Kaneda, thanks so much for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, it's great to have you on. I remember the last time we had you on to talk about Through the Shadow of Titans. Afterwards, I just started following you on Instagram, and naturally I started reading A Guardian, and I see you're doing mace training, you're building your own fantasy garden, and it just made me say, okay, I've got to hear more from him. And I'm just wondering, like, what is going on with you? Like, how do you do this mace training? What is that? Can you please talk about it?
Yeah, so the mace training is it's an interesting workout. I guess it originated from the weapon.
Okay.
I assume it literally is a steel mace. It just doesn't have spikes on it. It's probably about 3 feet in length. I just upgraded from a 15-pound mace, which I started onto a 20-pound.
Yeah.
And so all the weight is in the ball at the end of it. And then there's a hollow steel handle that probably weighs less than a pound. And so all of the weight is completely offset to one end, and it's all about leverage, really, and resistance, and motion, and tons of core training. So anyway, I've been working out, for the most part, probably since I was like 17. I've kind of yo-yoed a little bit in like my diet, and times where I should have been working out more, but life happens. And during the pandemic, I was working out. I have like a little home gym. It's like some, I got a bench and some free weights and things like that, a pull-up bar. But I kind of just realized I was like, I wasn't really being as healthy as I wanted to.
Yeah.
I was putting on a little bit of weight, and I kind of just needed to change it up. And I actually saw another comics creator. His name is Aubrey. I think the last name is Sitterson, and he's done some work with Dark Horse and puts out some really cool, fun books. But he was big into the mace, and I was like, this looks actually pretty cool. And I started looking at videos, looking at exercises. And I was like, I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm just going to order one and see what happens, see if I like it. And so I started with the 15-pound, and it sounds like, that's not a lot of weight, but It's incredible how hard it is. Because if you think about it, you're choked up on the handle and all of the weight is in one point. And so you're constantly fighting it to keep it in place, to keep it in the same spot. And so it's really a ton of resistance, a ton of core. And it has become really the core of my workout. I still do some like traditional bench press or, pull-ups, some of the main staples and things like that. But doing the different mace exercises has taken the full amount of my workout. And it's just incredibly fun. Like that was the other thing. I was starting to get like super bored with my workouts, and I was like, I can only listen to so many different songs or different podcasts or whatever while I'm working out. I just needed to do something different because I
stopped listening to music after a while during the pandemic of my work. I was just like, I'll go silent.
Right? Yeah, because it's like eventually it's almost like annoying because you're just especially if you're trying to work out, consistently, and you listen to the same songs and they stop energizing you, and then you have to waste time looking for different playlists and whatever. So I needed something to change it up, and I found the mace, and I have a bum shoulder. It's fine now, but I had surgery on it when I was like 21, I think.
Yeah.
I dislocated it wakeboarding, and it was so bad. I dislocated it probably like 20 times before I had to bite the bullet and get surgery. So I was kind of worried about that. So I was really studying the movement and making sure that like this would be something that I wouldn't re-injure myself on. And it's all about flow, like using the momentum of the mace. You're not fighting it. There's no jerky movements. So it takes a lot of really core and grip strength to make sure you're doing that fine. Like when you do 360s over the head, or just really whatever exercise you do. And I don't know, it's just been like super, super fun. It's been great to change it up. And I changed my diet a little bit. I started working out with this, and I lost like 20 pounds since probably about 5 months now. I just really went like hardcore into it.
That's awesome. Like that's what it's all about. I I talk about motivation on the channel all the time, and I
Mhm.
love hearing how you've just decided to find something that you found fun to kind of make those changes in your life. And do you think it was just seeing something cool that motivated you to kind of just get started, or how have you found the way to keep that motivation to kind of keep going and keep learning more?
Yeah, I think it was at first it was seeing something cool, and it was like, some of the exercises are kind of really like exercisey, I guess you could say. Like, you can still do curls and all the weight is offset, so it makes it a lot harder, and all of the resistance is in one arm on the end where the ball is, and the other one is kind of pushing down to keep it steady. So you can do some things like that, but then there are some exercises where you're really swinging a mace around, and
Yeah.
you can kind of like put yourself in a different mindset, and like, it's like you're a kid, and like you're pretending like you're in a battle,
Yeah.
or like you're learning a new technique. And so like that has been really fun, and seeing something new. But then also, I got a lot more strict about my diet, and I started seeing results. And obviously when you start to see results, it's like, that's motivation in itself, and I was looking forward to it. I used to look at working out like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
I gotta carve out 45 minutes to an hour to go down there, do my weights, do my cardio. And this has been like, it's like a blend of aerobic and anaerobic, and like your heart rate is up constantly. I find myself after exercises doubled over with my hands on my knees, and I haven't, sucking wind. I haven't really felt like that doing
That's awesome.
my traditional exercises in a long
Yeah.
time. And so getting tired like that and being like, am I going to stop here? Am I going to let this mace beat me, or am I going to keep going? That's kind of like the motivation that I've had to continue working out. And then my birthday, I told my partner, Kim, I was like, can I get a 20-pound mace? I think I'm ready for it. And so she ordered me one, and I've been using that. It's a lot tougher, but
Yeah.
I've been doing it. So it's been cool.
Has the jump from the 15 to the 20 been, would you say in your mind 25% more, or has it been more drastic?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably been a little bit more drastic. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be. And just for fun, I picked up the 15 the other day for the first time in a while, just to see, and it felt like super light. So I feel like I definitely have gotten stronger from it, but it's
That's
still
awesome.
tough. Like I had to cut down my reps a little bit in the beginning, just because of the weight difference. But it's been pretty cool. I think I got some okay video that I can
Oh, I
send
mean,
to you.
we're playing it. I can't wait to see it, because once I saw the photos of it, I said, oh man, I really wish I was still into Game of Thrones, because I would be doing this like Jon Snow right now.
There are exercises, and like when I was learning to like how to not hurt my shoulder, I was watching like All About Technique, and I forget what it was called. One of them might be like a shield cross, and you literally you pick up your mace and you hold it. Maybe that's a different thing, but one of them anyway. So they were describing the motion where you pick up your mace and you put it up like this to start the exercise, like you're blocking a downward swipe from a sword. And I was like, okay, this is fun. Like I can get into that. I can pretend I'm blocking a sword every time I go to set up the 360,
Well, that makes me think, like, as a creative writer, you have the power to create any weapon that you want. And it made me think, you're creating these fantasy worlds. Did the mace training really apply to a type of like a weapon set that you could create, or do you have any ideal power set that you would like to have?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's one I've thought about quite a bit. So the mace, I think it's an underrated weapon in fantasy. You don't really see too much of it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Gimli used, and not really, he used axes, right? But yeah, like you don't see too much. Maybe you see it like in a bad guy in an orc or something. But since I started working out with the mace, I think I want to make a protagonist or a good character using it. I mean, think about it. Like when this was like an actual weapon, like, when people in the medieval times, when people were at war, what a devastating weapon.
Yeah.
Like this thing it's nuts. It's crazy. Like, and I'm swinging it working out. I'm like, I'm afraid like I'm going to hit the mirror or the sheetrock or something. Like that would put a hole right through anything. I just can't imagine it. Like what a brutal weapon it must have been. But I mean, it is cool. I mean, as far as ideal weapons go, I don't know. Like I always kind of thought it would be cool to learn how to use a sword.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little generic, I know, but I just feel like swords are cool. They're timeless, you know? I do have
that's how I always been too. Like, you know, like Leonardo from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I always liked him because he had the swords, but I like Legolas because he has
double swords anyway, which is awesome.
Yeah. And I like Legolas because he has the bow and arrow. So I'm reading A Guardian and I'm seeing that people use magic, and we've got beasts and elves, and I'm wondering, how did you create like how do you create these fantasy worlds? Like, how do you create all these different kingdoms and, you know, make these worlds connect? It feels so massive reading it.
That's good. It's good that it feels that way. Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, I think like having 3 kingdoms in a fantasy might be borderline boilerplate at this point. There is often, I mean, it's been done in you know, Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones. I mean, it's a good number to set up drama, right? Because there's always going to be someone who's in the back, there's always going to be someone who's on top. So, I mean, I think that was probably, you know, when I was starting to think about, you know, what this world is going to look like, it seems like a safe place to start. But I didn't want it to just be like, you know, your typical 3 kingdoms at war, you know, story, which there is that in here, but I wanted to put a twist in there and have it that one kingdom is just eternally on top, and that's the Middle Kingdom of Cana. And no one else, no matter how hard they try, can beat them. And so that sort of is driving the story, and there's a mystery there, and it's tied to what's in the tomb. So I wanted to build a little bit of mystery. I wanted to probably play with a little bit of a borderline dark fantasy, because I don't know, sometimes my writing kind of veers towards that. I still like to keep a sense of hope and hopefully some humor.
I like the dark aspects. I love when it delves into it. It keeps me entertained.
Yeah, but it's been really fun. I mean, creating it, and, you know, that's the cool thing about fantasy is that you can literally do whatever you want. I mean, sci-fi, you kind of have to, I feel like, especially if you want, I mean, there are different types of sci-fi, right? You can be scientifically accurate, or you can be, you know, sort of just do whatever you want. But I feel like when you make up your own sort of science rules in sci-fi, then you're getting into like fantasy territory.
Yeah.
And so with fantasy, I just like it because anything can happen. Like you don't have to know the physics of the world. There's magic. Like, you know, you don't need to explain away or science away things. And so I don't know, it always kind of appealed to me as a creator in that way, because it's just an ultimate sandbox. You don't really have to play by anyone's rules except like your own that you're creating for that space. And so coming up to 3 kingdoms, you know, I wanted them to be, I always loved elves. Like, you know, you were saying like Legolas, like it was always such a cool character, or just elves as a race in general. I always thought were neat, they're mysterious, they're magical.
I was always a night elf in Warcraft.
Yeah. I mean, they're super cool.
Stealth, that's what I'm all about, you know?
Exactly. And that's what they're good at. You know, they're typically good at that sort of magic or stealth or, you know, some of the quieter combat techniques.
You know, just be in the tree shooting arrows, keep it simple.
That's it. Nobody even knows you're there. You're as quiet as the wind while you're shooting those arrows.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to do something a little bit different with the Northern Kingdom, and I was like, what kind of creatures would be, because it's the Kingdom of Tyrio, and the top is supposed to be very harsh as far as weather goes. And I was like, what kind of race would survive there, or what would be, you know, what kind of race would be would have originated in that area? And I was like, how about like beast people, like people who are, you know, they're humanoid, they're part animal, they have fur because it's always cold, and so I don't know, I just had fun coming up with them. And then they have a strong sense of loyalty and kinship in that, because they are animalistic in that sense. So they put those sort of values above sort of the greed or the different sort of human values that might be highlighted more in the Middle Kingdom. You know, so I just want to make them all different enough, but they're all connected because they're all stuck right next to each other in this world.
It's I mean, spoiler alert, I would say that the motivation between each like kingdom to why they're doing everything is so clear. Like I originally understood the Canucks the first time I read it, and I can see that that motivation is kind of surrounded by fear.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the other kingdoms, and hearing you described the Beast Kingdom, their loyalty, you can definitely feel that when you read it, and especially with the souls of the South and how they work together almost like more cohesively than the Canucks do.
Yeah.
I loved how you created the three different kingdoms and had them interplay. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen next, but I still want to know, is there a particular realm that you wanted to create more than the other ones, or is there one that you kind of wanted to live in yourself?
Oh yeah. So I like King Highwell and then the Canucks. They're the humans, but they're humans. Like, we already understand. I already get that. I really do like the souls a lot. They have like this sort of weird like desert oasis, and they have very ancient magic because they are the original people, or the original race of the Great Sphere, which is the world that it takes place in. So there is like this ancient wisdom there, this ancient magic, and I would just love to like write a whole book on them. And we don't really see too much of the Kingdom of Tyrio in the north because they're in the midst of moving down, or the main character from that kingdom is in the midst of moving down to invade and attack the Middle Kingdom. But Kay and I were talking, and we were like, I really want to explore that kingdom because it's such a cool race. There's so much going on. They've also been here for a long time, but their origins are a little bit more mysterious. They don't really know, or at least that's the lore, and that's part of the mystery, is where did they really come from. But so in chapter 4, which I'm writing right now, and I'll be sending to Kay very soon, we do see a little bit more of their kingdom, and we get a little bit more of Shura's history and her sort of motivation, which is really to
That's
save
what
people. But yeah,
I want it. That's what I was, because like, what is it? East of the Southern Wall, when Kells finds the knife.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that part. I love the magic that you're bringing into it. Quick question: do you think magic spells need to be enunciated, or can they just be unheard?
Ooh, I think they can be unheard. I think you can do both. I don't think you need to. I don't think there necessarily has to be like an incantation spoken aloud. I think there can be different types of magic, and that's what I like too about playing with the different races, because there is an ancient magic in Sol, which is very subtle, I guess. When Kells sort of helps the dying Sol in the battlefield lay to rest, and so that's sort of like through her spirit and through her heart. Where Delith might be more of a traditional sort of sorceress or witch, and she'll
Blood Knight,
and she will she'll refer to her tomes, and she'll recite spells and things like that to
I noticed
like
the contrast. That's why I had to ask the question. I was like, oh whoa, we're doing both here, and like we've got the traditional one, and if you guys haven't read this yet, the Blood Knight is my favorite part of this book right so far. I thought that was so cool. So spoilers be warned if you haven't. But
the Blood Knight, the Blood Knight's no joke.
I absolutely love that. I guess my next question would be like, did you have any inspirations for this, or do you have any favorite, fantasy movies or books or things that you really just like cling to, or you love to watch?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was like, I think I was in like 9th grade when the Fellowship of the Ring came out, and I had already read Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but when that movie came out, I saw it in theaters 9 times, no joke. Like I was, I'm a nerd now. I was a big nerd in high school. I was kind of like off in my own world reading books. So Lord of the Rings, of course, is like probably it's not actually the one that got me into fantasy, but it's the one that really solidified my love for it, I think. When I was younger than that, probably like fourth grade, I was reading a series called Redwall by Brian Jacques. He's a British author. He's passed away for a couple years now, but it's a fantasy story about, it's just animals, talking animals. They're like, mice are good, like weasels and stoats are bad. You have otters, you have rats, and the Redwall is an abbey, and it's always under attack by the bad guys. And it's like, once I got old enough to realize like each book is super formulaic, but it was so charming. Like, but I just loved like I remember that book was such an escape for me. Like, not really, kind of being reserved and a little closed off when I was younger. And I just remember like one particular time where my aunt was dying of cancer, and I took one of these books with me. I was like in fifth grade, and I took one of the books with me to the hospital, like when my parents were visiting her, and I would just like go out into the courtyard and read it, because that's how I was dealing with it, you know?
Yeah.
And it just is like, fantasy lends itself to being that like escape, you know, like you can deal with the drama and the high stakes within the book, but when you get into those different worlds and, you know, you're just totally transported. And I think for me, I always had some kind of like a connection with nature. I love being outside. Like, you know, you're talking about my garden. I could spend all day out there, or in the woods and hiking. And fantasy always sort of has some sort of natural element to it, I feel like, and maybe that's what drew it to me, and still does, I guess. But as far as current influences, when I'm writing in a genre, I try to kind of stay away from reading books within that genre. Because I feel like I have the type of personality where I can get super absorbed into something, and like I'll look at how a writer is writing, and without even like trying, I'll find myself like starting to sort of emulate it. But there is one contemporary writer named Joe Abercrombie, and he has a series called the First Law trilogy, which is great because it is just a trilogy. But then he has other stories in this world, so it's not like Wheel of Time or Game of Thrones or, you know, Song of Ice and Fire, where you have to read like 10 to 13 books to like get the whole story. Yeah. So he does them more sort of in more digestible lengths, I guess. But he's got such like a gritty, dark sense of humor, and his world is just brutal. Like, I would recommend him if you haven't tried it yet. But
no, I guess I have to.
Yeah, they're really fun. They're good books, and like, if you want to talk about characters just getting the shit beat out of them over and over and over again, it's like out of the frying pan into the fire, into the ninth circle of hell for these guys. Like, it just gets worse and worse and worse, and then you have to see how they're going to get out of it. That is what I like. I am all about situations where I don't want there to be a reason for them to just get out of it. I want it to be, you know, worse and worse, and you got to work for it to survive. I think that's what makes stories compelling. It truly does. And like, where normal pacing would be like, okay, this character went through hell, now they're gonna find their strength and get out of it. Like, when you think that's gonna happen in this guy's books, it's like, no, something even worse happens. It's just
okay, like, that's exactly what I want. I hate that. It's like, oh, someone comes to save the day. No, make it worse. Then we'll figure it out. Oh man. Well, do you find that is there a particular season that you like writing? Because I remember when I read Through the Shadow of the Titans, it almost had that wintry backdrop as well. I'm wondering do you particularly like the winter seasons or the summer seasons when you create these stories?
So this may not sound like such a profound answer, but when I know exactly what you're talking about with Through the Shadow of Titans, and I can recall because when I'm sitting here at my desk, and I'm lucky to have this big window in front of me that looks directly out into my backyard and the creek, and it was wintertime. And so I was looking at the dead frosted grass and, you know, the tree branches, which were bare and looking like, you know, spidery veins reaching up into the sky. And I was just like, this is going to be a winter scene because of what I'm looking at.
That's awesome. No, it's because I like the first chapter in A Guardian, and then I'm like and I see that they're both wintry. I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, okay, you know, maybe he likes the winter vibe. And there's
a good chance it was winter when I was writing those. I do personally love the winter though. It's been like 95 degrees here all week. And
Oh my
I'm
God.
over it. I'm ready for the fall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same here. I cannot wait for the winter weather.
Hmm.
But I'm just gonna ask you if you have any mentors that you would like to shout out, or and then if you have any advice for young comic creators.
Yeah. So one person I would look to as a mentor is Scott Snyder, he's a writer. He's on Batman. He does all types of creator owned stuff or death metal. You know, he did AD after that. So I took a course with him when I was doing my MFA, probably like 10 years ago now, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know who he was at the time, and I was either going to take another short fiction class and just write another bunch of crappy short stories, or go take the graphic novel. And so I said, you know what, let me just take this. I used to like comics. I wasn't really into comics back when I was doing my MFA. And it was taught by Scott, and that was right before he blew up. And he was just so awesome, so down to earth, and he really taught us to like find our unique voice as a writer. And that's one thing I always took away, because I realized that probably until I really heard that and it clicked with me, I would just look at writers that I liked and like try and do something in their style, you know. And then looking back at it, I'm like, what is this? Just like copycat stuff. And I think when you're starting out, a lot of young writers do that, and that's okay, because you're still working. Nobody wakes up one day and like, you know, Cormac McCarthy didn't wake up one day and like unless he did, because he's like the best. But you know what I mean? A lot of people, it takes time. And I feel like I've been writing for such a long time now, and I think I finally have found my voice, and I think it's something that can evolve still. But that was one of the things he taught. And, you know, I've been in touch with him, and he's just always been super supportive, really awesome. Of the indie comics community in general, for such a big name in the industry. So, and then also, you know, I have a ton of like contemporaries or peers working that are just like super inspirational. Like I'll see the stuff they're doing. I'll look at some scripts or pitch work that they're doing. You know, like Marcus and I bounce ideas back and forth all the time. And just even you know, Kay in A Guardian, like seeing her level of art and storytelling in the pages makes me want to be better, because I'm like, oh my God, I have to live up to this art. It's so amazing. My story better not be dragging any art down here. So like that's you know, an inspiration, and she's amazing to bounce ideas back and forth with. And Sean Daly is my other creative partner in a couple of stories. He's pushing. Every time I see his work, he's better, and I don't understand how it happens. Like I'm like, how can you get any better? Like your art is like perfect, and his storytelling is phenomenal. So, you know, I really look to those sorts of people that understand me and my storytelling sensibilities, and who will be honest with me. Like if something isn't working, like they're gonna say, hey, you know, Easton, you gotta cut that scene. That's not really gonna work out.
You need that.
Yeah, you do. You can't have someone just like saying everything's great, because it never is. And if no one's going to be honest with you, you know, you might not see it because you're so, you know, you've got that tunnel vision where you're not looking outside of your own perspective.
No, 100%. Yeah. And like we were talking before show, how, you know, the mace training and you being more diligent with your diet and the discipline has filtered into your creative works. And I guess like my last question for you is, you know, now that you've been able to apply this discipline to your creative works, what do you have next? What do you have in store? What can we expect next from you? Where should we be looking next?
So we are working on A Guardian Volume 2. Okay. It might be a little while before that's complete. We want to put it out probably as around the same length, so probably another 3 chapters, rather than doing issue by issue. In its full story, it'll probably be around 9 issues. So it's the most probably ambitious project I've worked on, and being epic fantasy in the constraints of a comic form has been challenging, but incredible. So Sean Daly, I just mentioned, he and we have a Kickstarter probably coming out in September. And this one we're super excited about. It's going to be just a 1 chapter comic, 32 pages, and it's called Lost Souls: The Trials of Cassie Capricorn. And it's about this young princess who gets killed on the night of her coronation, and she winds up in the afterlife, and she realizes that there's a piece of her soul literally missing. And so she goes on this journey. She meets an old deceased sea captain who's also in the afterlife, and he sort of is her mentor, helping her through this journey of looking for this piece of her soul. And so this is pretty influenced by like old school JRPGs, like on Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, like Chrono Trigger or Shining Force or Breath of Fire, the old Final Fantasies.
Yeah.
And Sean is actually working on art on that right now, and we should be launching that probably by early to mid-September. But the idea with this is each new chapter is going to be around the same length, like 32 pages, but it's going to be linked to the one before it by a peripheral character. So this one is about Cassie, the dead princess. Chapter 2 will be Skip, the sea captain's story. Chapter 3 will be a different supporting character that will move into the spotlight. And so they're all just going to be kind of linked like that.
That's dope.
Yeah, so we're having a lot of fun with that. And there is something that I'm working on with Kay as well. But
secret project?
See, it's a secret project, but I'll give you a quick lowdown without too many spoilers. It's actually a card game and a book. So that's the first time I've ever really talked about it. But my buddy, who I used to work with at my old job in New York, had this idea for a game, and he pitched it to me, and I was like, this is a great idea. I went to Kay. So my buddy's doing the engineering behind it, the gameplay. I'm doing the writing, and Kay's doing the art. And then we're going to have a novella that goes along with it. So we'll be talking more about that.
I mean, we got to have you back on when that drops, because I want to talk more about it. And
if you're into games, I'll send you some stuff to for the test plays if you want to.
Oh, if you want, yeah, we can do that. And you want to play it on the channel, we can do it. I'm all for it. I love talking to you, Easton, and I'm excited to hear more from your voice, and I'm excited to see where you go. And like, I cannot wait to read your next works, Guardian Part 2, Book 2. But thank you for joining us. We're going to get out of here, guys. If you want to hear more from Easton, follow him on Instagram, Twitter, anywhere else we can check out your work.
I think that's it. Yeah,
okay.
I'm not really, I think I have a Facebook somewhere, but I haven't been on there in like ages. I don't think I really go on there anymore. I may have deleted it even, but yeah, I'm usually just on Twitter or Instagram. Twitter, I'm more talking about comics and sharing art. Instagram, you'll see some my toddler running around and garden pictures more often than.
Yeah, and hopefully we see more of the mace training too.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to pick up A Guardian, you can get it on Easton's Etsy shop. I highly recommend it. I want to thank you all for watching. We'll be back for more content coming soon. But until the next time, guys, we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Dude.